As he approached Henry's tunnel, Boko tooted his horn loudly. As he roared into the darkness, Boko and his driver could see a figure standing on the line at the mouth of the tunnel.
"Someone's on the line!"
cried Boko.
"Boko, brake! Boko, brake!"
shouted the driver. The driver applied the brakes fiercely and the train screeched along the rails. Boko could always wait against the train. One moment the figure was inches away from Boko. The next, it was gone. Boko looked around in bewilderment as the passengers leaned out of the windows. The guard ran up to the cab.
"You were right, old chap,"
he called.
"There was something on the line,"
explained the driver.
"It looked like a young woman."
"I saw her too,"
agreed Boko.
"but she vanished into thin air."
The passengers were beginning to become impatient, but once the guard explained the situation, they all stayed respectfully quiet. The driver and guard went along the train, checking to see if they had hit the woman. They found nothing. All the same, they agreed to report the matter once they reached the next station. Boko, who was still in a state of disbelief, rolled cautiously out of the tunnel. Eventually, darkness fell, and the workmen were packing up their tools, ready for home. As Douglas was preparing to back away, there was a sudden gunshot, followed by a scream. Douglas jumped in horror. The workmen leaned out of the works coach. They had all been startled by the gunshot, but even more concerned by the sound of the woman screaming. Then Douglas nearly cried in fright. A young woman came running out of the darkness along the line from the manor.
"Look at that!"
shouted the fireman.
"Get me out! Get me out!"
shrieked Douglas. Before his driver could check him, Douglas shot backwards. Soon the story spread down the line, and it all became a great joke to Donald, when the police found no evidence of a shooting or a fleeing woman in distress.
"Anyone would think that Dougie is one of those spiritualists that contact the dead,"
teased Donald rudely. "Shut up," burst out Bear. "That's not funny."
"Aye, same goes to you,"
puffed Donald.
"First this rubbish about old Dean Morris, and now all this. When's it going to end?"
"I believe, Douglas," growled Bear, "he doesn't need you laughing at him. He needs you to look out for him."
"Pah! He's leaving me all the work to do. I'll start looking out for him when he turns the wheel."
"That's very harsh of you, Donald," snapped Bear furiously.
"Ah, stupid Dougie, there's no such thing as ghosts,"
puffed Donald confidently. "Famous last words," murmured Bear. That night at the sheds, Boko told the other engines what had happened.
"How extraordinary!"
exclaimed Duck.
"How odd!"
barked James.
"Indeed it was,"
confirmed Boko.
"As soon as I blinked, she disappeared."
Gordon wasn't convinced. "You must be seeing things, Boko." Henry had stayed unusually quiet during this discussion. Edward had noticed.
"Do you know anything about this vanishing girl?"
he asked innocently. No, certainly not," came the sharp reply. Henry once again grew defensive.
"Well, I do,"
said Edward. Henry's face turned pale, as everyone became intrigued.
"Her name's Mary,"
began Edward.
"She haunts Henry's tunnel from time to time."
"Nonsense!" scolded Gordon. "Shh!" hissed the other engines. Edward continued.
"Long before the railway was built, there was a village on the hillside. You can't see it from the railway line, but it's still there. A short distance from the village was a well, which supplied the villagers with fresh spring water from deep within the hill. The story goes that Mary was the bonniest woman in the entire village. She used her beauty to get whatever she wanted, in more ways than one. Unfortunately, her husband discovered she had been unfaithful to him, and overwhelmed by jealousy and fury, dragged her to the well and threw her down it. He left her to die. She was never found again. Years later, the railway was under construction. I helped to build a tunnel through the hillside where the well once stood upon. Mysterious occurrences soon occurred. Tools going missing, lanterns blown out, and dynamite exploding by itself. Workmen would exchange stories of a young woman haunting the tunnel, and that the railway was disturbing her place of rest. So frightened were the men that construction was cut short, and only one line was laid through the tunnel. As time went by and traffic increased, the Vat Controller made a decision to construct a second tunnel with double track. He wanted to double track the other tunnel, but the workmen refused to go near it.
The engines were in awe over the story.
But how come we've never seen this ghost before?
Asked James.
The workmen say she only makes herself known to a kind and forgiving soul, so to help her lay to rest,
Replied Edward. Henry had been looking at his buffers throughout the story. He took a deep breath and confessed to his friends. I have met Mary before. The engines gasped in surprise. When I was locked up in the tunnel, she came to see me, but I was young and too frightened to speak to her. She seemed disheartened that I wouldn't talk to her. I wish I did, for now I haven't seen her since.
So that's why you're so edgy about the tunnel,
Concluded James. The sheds filled with an awkward silence. Gordon muttered a quiet, "Good night." No one responded. All the engines seemed to be lost in their thought. Now Boko was alone. He stared out into the yard. All was silent. No trucks being pushed around, not even the distant sound of diesel's horns. It was as if the fog muffled the world around him.
Why, hello.
Boko jumped. Beside him was an old tender engine. His blue paint was marked with soot, and his face was smudged. Dark, heavy bags hung under his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept for days. "It's not often I have visitors," he said in a warm but weary tone. At last Boko found his voice.
I'm very sorry,
He stuttered.
I didn't mean to intrude. My driver and I got lost in the fog, and no need for apologies.
Chuckled the engine.
Fog can lead you places you don't expect to be. Besides, it's nice to have company for a change. Well, thank you,
Smiled Boko.
I must admit, I am surprised. I've been taking the night goods for years, but I've never seen this shed before. Or you, for that matter.
The old engine chuckled again.
You're not the only one. Seems I'm invisible to most who work here.
The engine eyed Boko up and down.
You're a Sodor engine, aren't you? How did you know? You're different from the diesels that live around these parts. Much more courteous for a start. I was a Sodor engine too, many moons ago.
Boko was surprised.
Yes, it's true,
Laughed the engine, spying the look of shock on Boko's face.
Used to work at the big station. A lovely place it was.
The engine sighed and looked down at his buffers.
Only wish I'd appreciated it more at the time. Why didn't you return?
Asked Boko.
I'm sure the Fat Controller would welcome you back with open arms. Oh, no,
Stammered the engine.
you didn't have the patience for an engine like me. Nonsense.
Smiled Boko.
He certainly wouldn't want to see you in a state like this. Tell you what, come back with me tomorrow.
The old engine ignored this.
Tell me,
He asked.
is Edward still round? Oh, yes,
Replied Boko.
I work on his branch line.
I'm glad to hear it. Smiled the engine.
A kind soul he was. I only wish I'd been as kind to him. What did you say your name was?
Asked Boko.
It's getting late.
Yawned the old engine.
We'd better get some sleep now. We'll finish our chat in the morning.
Boko was curious why the engine wouldn't answer his question, but had to admit he was feeling drowsy, and it wasn't long before he fell asleep. Boko's sleep was anything but peaceful. All night long he dreamt of scrap yards, old engines that were lined up in sidings, the shadows dancing in the flicker of the cutter's torches. Violent red lights illuminated the inside of a shed, and all Boko could hear were the muffled pleas for mercy, drowned in the sounds of sneering metal. Boko woke with a start. It was daylight now. The fog burned off by the morning sun. He breathed a sigh of relief that his dream was over.
I hope I didn't keep you up.
He said, addressing the old engine.
I had an awful...
He stopped. The old engine and the shed were gone. A portion of Bear's goods train had become uncoupled, and half of it stood outside Henry's tunnel. James had to use the main tunnel to bypass the obstruction. As he steamed towards the tunnel, he noticed what appeared to be a young woman standing next to the brake van.
It's Mary's ghost!
Shrieked James. He shot forwards in panic, and slipped on the rails. The driver held him back.
Hold on, boy,
He cried.
No, I want to go. I want to go.
James wailed. He raced through the tunnel and shot out of the other side. He didn't stop until he reached the next station. Bear was there with half of his goods train.
Sorry about my trucks,
He said.
The driver says they were broke free, but the guard is convinced something uncoupled them.
James began to shiver and tear. Bear seemed confused.
You look like you've seen a ghost.
James let off steam indignantly.
that's not funny.
When Duck caught Johnny crossing the lines again, he spoke out about it.
You should kick that bad habit into touch.
He scolded.
What?
Asked Johnny dimly.
You keep crossing the lines without paying attention.
I'm not trespassing, I work here.
I didn't say that.
Groaned Duck.
You don't even look to see if anything's coming. It's dangerous.
Everyone else does it, retorted Johnny in a juvenile manner.
You're missing the point. Everyone crosses with caution. You just stroll across like there's nothing to worry about.
But there isn't.
Oh, for the love of... It's like talking to a brick wall.
Youth of today, grumbled the driver. That brain-dead fool won't listen to you. Youngsters act like they're invincible. Just then, Johnny turned around and crossed the lines again. Suddenly, Henry came charging down the middle line through the station.
Look out!
Shouted Duck. Henry raced past Johnny, missing him only by a few inches.
Whoa! That was close.
Chuckled Johnny. Duck thought he was going to pass out.
It's not fair. You get to become this famous, adored engine with a loving home, and then look at what happened to me. I was treated like trash while I was still alive. You don't deserve any of what you have. It should have been me!
Edward feebly entered Henry's tunnel. The driver and fireman had to admit defeat, and Edward was brought to a gentle stop, just short of the tunnel exit.
We'll have to wait here till we can build up more steam,
sighed the driver. The guard climbed into the cab.
Fireman, you'll have to go back to the signal box and alert the signalman. We are temporarily stuck. Driver, bring a lantern and help me put out detonators on the track,
he said. With that, the three men left. Edward was alone, but he wouldn't be for long. It had only been 5 minutes, but Edward heard footsteps on the ballast. The steps grew louder. Edward waited until the sound was at his cab.
Hello, Mary,
he whispered softly. A pale young woman appeared in Edward's view, and she walked slowly in front of the locomotive. She didn't say a word. She looked longingly at Edward's old eyes. Edward smiled at her. He wasn't afraid.
This is no place for a young lady such as yourself to be in,
whispered Edward.
It's cold, damp, and dark in here. You should be with your loved ones.
Mary began to smile. She seemed to be holding back her tears.
Please don't cry,
pleaded Edward.
What is done is done. It is all in the past, and time has moved on. And I think it's time you should too.
Mary gazed lovingly at Edward. She patted him appreciatively on the buffer, and faded away. Just then the crew returned.
Who are you talking to?
Called the driver.
You don't believe in all this Mary rubbish, do you? No, not at all,
murmured Edward sadly. At the end of the day, Duck waited at his usual spot at the platform, ready to leave for the sheds. It had proven to be a challenging day. Soon, he spotted Johnny, walking the lines yet again.
If I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. Pay attention and look!
Snorted Duck. Johnny crossed the main line and walked slowly up to Duck. His expression was dispirited and forlorn. He looked despondently into Duck's eyes. Duck wondered if he'd been crying. Johnny remained silent for a few minutes, and then quietly said, "I'm sorry."
Is everything all right, Johnny?
Duck,
came a voice from behind the pannier.
Are you all right?
Toby, the tram engine, pulled up alongside.
Oh, yes, I'm fine. I was just talking to...
Duck cut short. He looked down to where Johnny had been standing. The young signalman had gone.
We've just heard the news. I'm ever so sorry. How are you coping?
I'm coping just fine, thank you. Johnny's been playing hide-and-seek all day. But other than that, nothing to worry about. What are you sorry for?
I don't understand,
said Toby.
What do you mean Johnny's been playing hide-and-seek?
Well, one minute he's there, the next he isn't. I was just talking to him, and now he's completely disappeared again.
But that's impossible.
Why's that?
Because Johnny is dead. He was hit by the train this morning on the main line. James was signaled to run through with his delayed pickup goods after you went ahead with it. He didn't look to see when James was coming. I'm sorry, Duck, I thought you knew.
But I saw him this morning. I've seen him. He was here.
Toby couldn't think of anything else to say. Duck just cried.